Hello, hello. Uh, Happy January 11th, 2024. I was going to do some auction preparation for the Infinity Comics auction that is live tonight here in a couple of hours, and just figured I would go live and just let you kind of peek over my shoulder in terms of just kind of observing how I prep. So would love for this to be interactive. If you have any questions in the chat, I might go silent for a minute or two here or there as I'm digging through the data and just thinking about, how I want to organize my bids and so forth. But would love to just have an open discussion about comic books. Do you participate on HipComic? Are you aware of it? And I can certainly answer any questions you have about the prep. So I'm just going to get into it, start sharing my screen, and just kind of go through the process here. So let me first get my auction prep spreadsheet up, and I'll get the share going here so you can actually see what it is that I'm doing. Right. All right, let me blow this up a little bit so you can see it. That's really small. Okay, so hopefully you can see this information on my screen. Just make it a little bit bigger here. Well, I think you kind of get the idea. Not quite optimized. See if I can get this window. Let's do this. Okay. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So the spreadsheet that I have here that I'm looking at, it includes all of the it includes all of the HipComic auction listings. So if I click over here to the Infinity Comics graded auction for tonight, and you can see most of these books are ending in a couple of hours. I often find it to be a little bit difficult to figure out which books to bid on. What they end up doing is they kind of highlight what they think are maybe their top four books, and they put them up here. So this is supposed to be like the eye-catching, like you'll see ASM 252 or X-Men 101, first Shang-Chi, Space Adventures 33, and you're like, oh, I want to see what else is in the auction. So it's a little bit of an advertisement. Hey, Benjaz. Benjaz says, I've only bought from Infinity. Do you recommend any other vendors? I noticed Mile High is on Hip, but seems mostly lower grade. Yeah, I would not buy from Mile High on HipComic. They just run a store. HipComic, to me, as a buyer, the benefit is the auctions and not the stores. I mean, certainly, if you want to contact a store seller and negotiate or make offers, I think they offer that through the site, but I primarily use it for auctions. They're Well, Quality Comics used to be another one, but they since left. I mean, I have my own personal theories as far as why they left. They honestly probably left because they weren't getting as much, back for the return on investment for being a, I forget what the tier is on Hip Comic, but being like one of their preferred or premier sellers. All of these platforms, they just want to charge an arm and a leg to basically be the top tier in terms of being promoted and getting maybe a lower transaction fee, but then it's a ridiculous amount per month. Low quality comics, possibly, possibly, but they're gone. They do live sales on eBay now. So if it is a seller that you follow, they have a website. I mean, my theory is once you find a seller that you like, definitely follow them around. But I stopped buying from Quality Comics once they left HipComic. So there is Infinity Comics, and there is another seller that I don't want to spoil, but there'll be a future unboxing. I don't want to go so far as to say that they're a borderline honey hole, but I have picked up some good deals from them as well. There's actually a couple, one for raw books and one for slabs, which is quite rare on HipComic to see a lot of slabs up for sale. And there's a new seller on here selling slabs. And Ben Jazz, if you go to that seller right now and outbid me on all the slabs I have bids on, I'll just ban you from the channel. But no, but you can kind of figure it out for yourself if you go to HipComic. I like Infinity Comics because it's a mixture of books that are of the era that I prefer to collect and buy from and speculate on in terms of condition, not speculate in terms of character or story or who's going to be the next Disney Plus superstar or anything like that. It's more of finding books that are of a certain grade and that fits my budget, where ultimately my end game is if I have 4 or 5 copies of Alpha Flight #1, I personally, for my long-term PC, want to keep what I would consider to be the best copy, the highest grade copy, or the copy that could potentially be sent out to a presser for professional CPR. In order to get there, though, I have to acquire some of the copies, right? I can't just, search eBay every single day and look at every book and figure out and say, okay, this is finally that near mint copy of Alpha Flight #1 that I've always wanted. That's the one I'm going to get. And then you bid on it and you're outbid. And, ultimately I'm fine if I can only ever get a 9.0 Alpha Flight #1. And that's just, the money that I've been willing to spend on it. And that's as good as I can get. And I'll be satisfied with that going forward. And if I have a 5.0 and a 6.0 and a 7.0, it might be a good opportunity to let those books go, either in a trade or a sale of some kind. So instead of just kind of going through book by book, again, this is kind of like, not necessarily like a tutorial, but more of like, you're kind of just watching me prep. I was just going to prep for the auction, but figured I would go ahead and start a live stream so you can kind of see the process. So because I can't really walk and chew gum at the same time, I may need to navigate the spreadsheet, adjust some data, and may not be able to kind of talk through it. So if at any point I go quiet and you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'd be happy to pop into the chat and respond. So let me get going, as I am running out of time. Kevin757, thank you for being here, and thank you for your support as well. This is a subscriber-only live stream, and hopefully we'll be doing maybe even some member-only live streams in the future. Maybe when I start reviewing some of the honey holes, we'll kind of leave it exclusive for the channel members, so we don't want to ruin the experience for those of us that are buying from some of these sellers. But Infinity Comics is probably the largest seller on HipComic. You can't miss it when you go to the main auctions, the auction events. They're all over the place. And the Mort's box slots and the Infinity Comics, I believe it's the same seller. All right, so this is typically what I do. I come in here. I'll look at the current auction. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit too. Okay. I don't want to cut off the cover art because we want to admire that. Okay, so Like I said, the first four I just kind of skip over. I always scroll down to the bottom too and just say, give me the 96 items per page. Why it's not 100, I don't know. They're just, it's 96, doubling from 48, I guess. So the trouble is I end up running out of time when I just scan book to book. Yes, Kevin757, Black Suit Spidey, right? Everybody wants it. But there's two problems that I have. One, I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know which books to bid on. They don't list, and I don't want them to either, like, hey, this book's a key. Or it's being speculated on, it's on a hot list or something like that. So I have to figure out, use my own experience. And a lot of times with auctions, you're just kind of eyeballing these going, I think that's a book I want, but I'm not exactly sure. The second problem is I don't know how much to bid. So looking at Kevin757, he's all over Black Suit Spidey, right? He comes in here and he's like, this is a personal grail. I have to have it. I grade conservatively, so it looks like a 9.8. And then you sit here and you're kind of going, yes, ASM 299, another personal grail for Kevin757. But anyway, so this is a newsstand. He loves newsstand copies. He's a newsstand snob. And you're going through here and you're like, oh, this looks to be pretty good. Great shape. And then you do this for a few books and you realize you wasted a half an hour on the same 3 or 4 books because you're trying to analyze the grade. And now I'm getting dizzy and sick as I spin through and hover over the book, right? I don't have time to do that. I honestly don't. So what I've done over time is with Infinity Comics, it's not that every listed grade, like VF plus, it's always a VF plus, but it's always within a range. It's in the ballpark of VF plus. Based on, examining and scrutinizing, and you can zoom in. I'll often just open this in a new tab and do this and zoom in even more, and we can get crazy. And there is this lighting, is this art, are there spots in the book? I mean, we can start to go really crazy with each scan, and it depends. If you're really interested in this book, that makes sense. But I need to know in general, give me kind of the consensus based on my data and my analysis, which book should I be looking at? That's where the spreadsheet comes in. So let me close this. And so what I do is I have every item that's in this auction, to the best of my ability, kind of parsed out here into this spreadsheet. And then in the auction item sheet, and then I have to clear, sometimes I have to manually put in the variant, or manually override the variant, because it's just the parsing of the title. As I look at the string of the title, sometimes the variant doesn't come through. You'll see here, like, this says 350 direct edition, and so I just have to come in and just kind of clean it up a little bit and do that. Let me get a little more room here. And then auction items is kind of where the magic happens. And I have a cheat sheet, auctions to bid on. It's not perfect, but the auctions to bid on, it summarizes all of the active items in the auction, where the max bid, for me personally, not saying you. So if you're Kevin757 does this where he joins these live streams and he screenshots. He's doing it right now. He's taking a screenshot of this list with all the bid maxes, and he's like, "See, I told you, Black Suit Spidey 252. The current bid at the time I compiled this data, $158. I can max out at 215.38 and win." Right, so it's at 163. So you just blindly bid on it, and yes, you could do that. I have a low grade copy of 252. I believe it is a newsstand. I don't know where I got it from. I didn't buy it off the spinner rack in 1984, but I have one, and it's probably like a 3.5 or 4.0, or it's nasty. Lots of color breaks. It's dirty, and just because I physically own it, it's just not a book I'm chasing. Now I say that, and then I'll probably have an unboxing in a month where I tracked it down. But for me personally, at this time, based on what I've been doing, which is a lot of submissions to pressers and a lot of CGC grading, I don't have a lot of powder to throw like $215 at a single book at this point. Now, the argument could be made that based on the condition, it might be worth it. Now, here to kind of zoom in a little bit on what kind of data we're looking at. So here it is, ASM 252, 8.5 VF plus, a CGC graded 8.5 currently has a fair market value of $418.33. So if you're just kind of doing the math at home, let me move over to the right so we can see a little bit the bid max. 215.38. Even if you just round up a crazy amount like $100 to get this pressed, clean, submitted, who knows, right? $300, maybe you're invested. Also, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but for Infinity Comics, for any books that I win at auction, I get charged shipping and then tax. I don't calculate tax in here, but I should. But for me, if I were to bid 215, it's really more like 235. So it's something else that I have to take into consideration. Maybe they don't charge tax for everybody. I don't know. Kevin757 or Ben Jazz, if you've won anything from Infinity, I'm curious to know if they've charged you tax. Okay. So this sheet, auction items, this is more the detailed view that gives me kind of an idea. So I could filter these if I just feel like only bidding on bronze books and so forth. But kind of what I do is I look at my cheat sheet, and then I think I go back here and I kind of bounce back and forth between these two. This also lets me know if the data isn't properly formatted. For me personally, Benjaz says, I don't think I pay tax here. Okay, yeah. I'm in California. Everything's taxed. They tax you on air that you breathe in, so it makes sense that I'm also taxed like crazy for all the comics that I buy. All right, so Alpha Flight 1, there's a general problem with it. Let me see. I may have to bring in another spreadsheet to help me with some of the data normalization. Let me put this off to the side. What I'm doing is I'm loading up my my sort of master analysis worksheet, and I'm not going to show that on camera because that will be screenshotted by Kevin. So what I want to do is just normalize Alpha Flight number 1 so that I get the data. Kevin757 says no tax in Arizona from Infinity. I need a P.O. box where you guys live. Just do that. Aren't there services where you can like create an address? I think I heard of this. It's for some monthly fee. This might be good if you have spouses or loved ones in your household that keep track of the packages that come in that say comics on it. They have services where I think you can deliver all of your mail to one place, and then at some frequency they'll pack it all up and then ship you one giant box. So, well, I'm laughing because I don't think that would be helpful, because this massive cardboard box would arrive on the porch and I'd open it and it's a bunch of smaller shipments from eBay and everywhere. So strike that idea. stupid idea, but I was just trying to save a little tax. All right. This is serious. The auction's ending soon. So let me just go back and show you. So like Alpha Flight number 1, this is the problem. When I'm trying to develop a way to normalize the data, you can see some consistency. Like if you look at The Amazing Spider-Man, what I do is I parse the data so that it comes back Amazing Spider-Man 299 with the year, and that's important to me, and it's why I actually participate in a lot of Infinity auctions, is because there's enough data in the title that matches what I would consider to be the unique string. There's a way with some comics to use like a UPC or the diamond or distributor code to kind of figure out what is this precise specific item. But then even like with the newsstand, you have a UPC associated with the newsstand copy, but then some books have a Mark Jewelers, and either the UPC is the same, or it's hard to tell the difference. So I always have to basically create my own phrase or string, a string phrase that describes that specific item. So you'll see that sometimes they just forget to put that in here. So like Alpha Flight number 1, I can't parse the year because it's not included, and typically they put the year in parentheses. And so this is 1983, and the condition is VF and M. And now if I go back, the data is populated. So this is interesting here. Like Alpha Flight number 1, you see that book as a collector and you're like, I recognize that. That's a good book. My bid max is $6.33, and it is currently at $24.50. Now, again, this is where you do have to kind of zoom in on the condition and look at it, and you could say to yourself, well, I think this is better than a VFNM, and that's your choice. But I see ink streaks up and down the cover, difficult to get out. This is possibly a problem here. Again, is this a ink streak? I don't think it's a crease. I don't know what these dots are. So you might look at this and go, hey, sharp corners, this is a near mint copy, and that's your business. But I'm skipping this copy of Alpha Flight, as a $24.50 bid is way more than $6.33. Because if you look at that book and you look at the scan and you're wrong about the condition, through your computer screen or mobile screen, basically through the internet, if you are wrong and it is a 9, it has a CGC value of $41. I've also started to do this too, which is interesting. So if there is a copy of the book in the grade that Infinity lists, and it's on my comic shop, I put it here just for reference. So we jump over to my comic shop. You can see, well, maybe it was purchased. Looking for a 9.0. What's even less? $36. Could have sworn there was a $40 copy. Anyway, there's too many to look at. The point is, you don't want to bid more than a raw copy exists at MCS, because I would say even MCS is probably more conservative with their grades. Infinity's not conservative with their grades. Infinity is just kind of all over the place. So they're listing this book as a 9.0. It could be anywhere from an 8 to a 9.4. Ben Jazz says, yeah, that Alpha Flight price is nuts. I've seen other vendors selling them for $20. And it must be hot for some reason. That book is kind of up and down. I think there's always some general interest. I think I've bought 3 copies from Mile High, and I think they're all 9.0s. And I paid more than 20, probably closer to 40. But the point is, too, just like keeping yourself in check. Like, in a worst case scenario, if you really wanted this book and I mean, it's right here. A CGC 9 is $41. A raw 9 is 36 to 40. An 8.5 is 29. I understand collecting raw books. We don't want to get every book slabbed. I understand that. I get it totally. But I'm always thinking, what if you change your mind later down the road where you're like, I'm going to take half my collection and grade it. You're losing money essentially. You're throwing money away. Beyond just throwing your money away in comics in general, you're specifically throwing your money away here because you could have just bought a 9.0 outright for $40. Okay, it's time to finally start digging in here, and again, I don't mind if you see what I bid on. The point here is not to hide anything. If you're gonna get on and outbid me, that's fine. I have my maxes set here, and let's take a look and see. So the one thing I'm missing is I would like a direct link from this to HipComic, and I need to fix that. But for now, I can just kind of eyeball it where I'm looking at the current bid and I'm looking at the bid max. So like ASM 167 and a 7.0, that's a pretty good grade for me. I try to only bid on non-keys 6.0 or above. I just prefer that. There's no really rhyme or reason. It's kind of the same logic that I have or reasoning with heritage auctions. If I'm buying raw copies, it's like I really only want to buy a 6.0 and up. Once it gets into the 5s and below, you get into that dangerous territory of the book just being completely undesirable and not worth grading at all. So if we look at ASM 167, let's go back. This is a better view for me. It even got a little photo so I can see it. VF minus. In a 7.5, it's a $40 slab. I can afford the 10.05, and so then I'll jump over here, and just for convenience sake, this is what I was talking about. I've got the link here. And so now I have a choice. I can certainly expand this and start to really examine it. And I'll probably just give it a quick overview just to make sure there's no writing on the cover. And it looks pretty good. Yep, a little bit of color breaks around the staples. Okay, sure. Probably, around a VF. I'm trying to do this as fast as possible, and I won't do this for every book, but this book looks pretty good. Here's a little bit of a finger bend down here. Corners a little round, a little soft but not bad. Maybe, and this is where it's tough with photos too. Like you can spend all day agonizing over a photo, but you don't quite know, is there a crease here at the top? I can't really tell because of the photo quality. It's possible. I just see, you may not even see it on the video. But there's something there. I don't know. And this is where I just kind of have to go with it, and that's why I build the ranges in. So for a VF minus, they're saying this is a 7.5. To me, it's probably an 8, maybe an 8.5, which then makes me more interested in the book. Now, if I really wanted to, I could just type in here and just override it. And now you see my bid max goes to 1461. I typically only do that for key books that I really feel like are misgraded. But 10.05, that's going to be my bid. And there you go. Now I'm the high bidder. So Kevin 757, if you want to get in there and go ahead and bid $10.30, it's all yours. And I got asked this question today around like books that you kind of hunt for and search for. I really try not to get caught up in that too often. Yes, there's always books, maybe a Dave Stevens book here or there, that I just kind of get obsessed with, and I have to track it down and I have to find it. But a lot of times whatever shows up in my auctions, my bookmarks, the Mile High new listing, Atomic Avenue want list, Midtown want list, whatever it is, I really don't stress on chasing that one book down. I just sort of like, I'm not chasing ASM 167. But if that book comes back and needs a little cleanup and maybe it can be improved into a 9 or a 9.2, that's going to go in my ASM bin. And that might be my only copy, or I may have a 5.0 or a 6.0, and now I've got this nice 7.5 or 8.0 copy, and I've made a nice upgrade, and I still feel like the $10.05 bid, if I'm to win that, I think what's hidden on the screen, let me move it over a little bit. I also have the cover price with a link back to cover price if I need it right here. And I've got a raw range of, I might have to look at this, $8, $24, $26. Menno Fresh says, what if the spreadsheet could automatically bid for you? It's crossed my mind. I think that's a little dangerous, but it has crossed my mind to just build a program that says bid on all of these. But if I get that one formula wrong, then I'm bidding, $2,500 on ASM 252 instead of 250, and then I'm really in trouble there. But let me just figure out, I'm spending a lot of time on this one example, and then I'm going to just rip through a bunch and get through them because I want to get my bids in. But just to kind of show you, if we pop over to cover price and look at specifically ASM 167, just to make sure I've got the raw values, because I have 3 raw values. I think what the raw values represent is the most common 9, and then, yeah, that's it. Okay, so the 3 values that I have for cover price, it's the most common raw, because I still don't understand how they come up with raw book values by grade, but there's the most common, $9. Then there's the value, the FMV of the raw book of the grade that's been assigned, which in this case is 24. And then what I also do is I want to say, what is the high value, which is 28. And so that's where those 3 come into play. Well, it says 26, but it looks like there was a recent sale in December. So my data might be a little bit stale, or maybe a month old on this book. Oh, and there it is. That's the last time I looked up the values for this book. I always track the last time I looked up the value, because if it needs a refresh, then I go in and refresh it. So I haven't looked at the value of this book in 11, 12 days. And so when I'm figuring out the formulas for my bid maxes, which is all the stuff on the right of the sheet that you can't see, but it's all of my kind of like working through, well, what if I slab it? What if I buy it raw? What if it's this grade? What if it's a grade higher? What if it's a grade lower? And I go in and I look at all of that and analyze it, and then figure out what sort of the bands should be between the min, the target, and the max. So the target would be kind of your ideal. What I've noticed with Infinity is if you just put in your minimum or target, you're going to get outbid. I used to be able to win with a green or yellow bid, but now I have to max it out if I want a shot. There's just too many snipers at the last second on these books. Okay, so this one, 10:05. So let's move a little bit faster here. And what I'll do is, instead of referring to the cheat sheet, just because it's missing so much information, like there is ASM 169 at 886. I like to put, if it's a key book, I mark it as a key if it is marked as such in cover price or key collector. So if one of those sources says, hey, this is a key book, I just flag it. It doesn't affect my bid max. It's just there for my own reference. So here we have current bid 750, 886 on ASM 169. It's already up to 950. So I'll move on. Let's see. And you can see here too, like in a VG for ASM 170. There's no graded value. Somebody's put a bid in at $3.24 on ASM 170 and go for it. That's fine. I don't want that book in a VG. I can even tell from the tiny thumbnail that there's color breaks. Here we're watching ASM 252. Somebody bid on it, $165.99. That's probably Kevin757 because he saw my max bid. But guess what? Surprise! I'm not bidding on that one. ASM 253 in a VF. You're kind of going through. I think this one's interesting. ASM 299 in a VF minus. My spreadsheet says $35. And it is currently 59. So in a 7.5, you can just buy it already slab for $73. Cover price has it raw for $88. I don't particularly want this book, but let's look at it anyway. Can see a little dirt there. I'm gonna blow it up even more. I mean, it's a clean copy. Well centered. They're just, again, the photography on here, it's great, but they go through so fast. Sometimes the books are blurred, but I'm seeing just hairline ticks, maybe 3, 4, 5 ticks, but the corners are sharp. There's some smudging or ink staining here that, I mean, you could risk it with a dry clean. Let's check out the back real quick. And I'm only doing this because this is a key book. More color breaks, color breaking on the corner. So maybe a little bit of tearing down here, bindery tearing in the corner. So it could be, again, just ballparking it. Let's say 8.5 to be fair, instead of 7.5. Does that change the max? $40, 35 to 40. So again, at $59, go for it. Great book. I already have it in a 9.8, so I'm personally not as invested in additional raw copies of this. So I'm just going to pass. So as far as the ASM books go, it is tempting. It is tempting to go back and look at the 252, but I'm just going to keep going because I really don't want to spend that much money on a single book. And again, I'm not as obsessed with that book as I am with others at this point. So there are books in here that just have no value, like Aquaman 49. It's a VG minus. I have no data. That's why you see all of these errors, NAs, can't find it in my values worksheet. Whatever. I just skip it. One of my favorite things to say, there's plenty of comic books. There's plenty. So I don't have to dig into Aquaman 49, especially in a VG. And I will kind of just start eyeballing the grades, and just, even if it is like, oh, Avengers 99, early Avengers I collect, but I just don't want them in 4s, 4.0s. And even if it's like, well, it could be a 5, could be a 5.5, I have never experienced an Infinity Comics 4.0 that ends up being a 9.0. So this is where I just look at the data, trust it. And again, if you really want a copy of Avengers 99 in a VG, you could just click over to my comic shop. And there it is, VG, $409. So you don't have to bid for the book here, plus for me tax and so forth. If I really want it, I could just buy it outright later. But I don't want it in a VG. Okay, Avengers 100, Avengers 115. So that current bid is $350. Yeah, so this is kind of what happens. I start fixating on the spreadsheet and I almost forget. This is why I started to, when I had time, to start putting the cover art over here so I could have a little bit of a combination of the HipComic interface and the spreadsheet, but I'm clearly lacking a lot of cover art data. So here's some of the Batmans. So when there's cover art on the left, I think the spreadsheet kind of pops a little bit more. And I apologize if see if I can get this to expand a little bit, or I'll just move it over. Yeah, so when you can see the cover art, I think that makes a difference. Right? Like Batman 251, and you see that and you're like, oh, the Neil Adams Batman. I forgot that was issue 251. I have a lot of issues memorized, but I'll often still, in my old age, forget. And it's like, oh, look, it's a Neil Adams. That's the Neil Adams Batman. And then you can kind of see here, it's up to $60, but it's in a 1.0, and there's some other description on it. So I think when there's cover art, it adds just a little bit more meaning to what I'm doing here, and helps me figure it out. But I just don't know if I want the one Avengers book that always kind of pops for me is this Avengers 186. And just looking at the condition here on this one. Again, it's very subtle, but there's several color breaking ticks. Great John Byrne cover, Scarlet Witch. Yeah, like 7 to 8 is probably fair. 7.0, 8.0. They have it as VF. And then looking at the price, $13.09 is the max on that one. They've got it as an 8. Yeah, 8 or 8.5 is fair. And so again, if it's a book I'm interested in, I'm like, well, what if it could be bumped to an 8.5? Okay, 15.24 would be my max. I put it back. I take my max 13.09, and then I go ahead and put it in there. So this is where I kind of bounce back and forth. Like right now, it's either my eyes or my brain or something. I'm just not feeling the spreadsheet, but I'll go back and refer to it if I need to. Avengers 193, 194, VF minus, strong copies. I mean, 99 cents, $3.25. I'm sure it's advising me to bid on it. Yep, 7. There's one for you. Kevin 757. The max bid on Avengers 193 is 757. But then you see Avengers 194 and you're like, oh, I'll bid on that too. 92 cents is the max on that. And it just gets weird. 99 cents is the current bid on 193, and it's just reversed. It just gets weird. This was one. Avengers 196 is interesting. First full Taskmaster cover art everybody knows by George Perez. Given it a quick glance, is it a 6? Is it a 7? It's probably a 7. Just looking at the back. Back looks fine. So 7. Oh, was that a crease down the back? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, where is it? Yeah, look at this. Look at that. And the photo's blurred, but that's just nasty. Okay, so they graded it a fine minus. That's fair. Because I was thinking it was a 7 or a 7.5, maybe an 8, but then I saw that, like, no way. So that's where, you do kind of have to trust it at some point, right? So it's a fine minus 5.5. 2184. Somebody's bid 53. Did these bidders not look at the back cover? Maybe. But that's why I don't just come in here and go, oh, this is a fine minus. Yep, that looks pretty good. Cover price says it's an $80 book. I'll bid 60 and I move on. Yes, you should examine the scans, but if you literally can't go through 200 items and look at every single scan up close, I just rely on this, and it's telling me this is a $20 book. Otherwise, move on. So I'm going to move on. Batman 350, early Batman, 1982. Not super early, but early 80s. $12. No graded value. Some of the Batman books, I like to collect Batman, but not really feeling some of these. Detached staple, moisture stains. This just looks horrific. This Batman 251. 253 is interesting with the shadow, but it's a VGFN. Here's an FN Plus for Batman 263. I've picked up this book in the past. 25-cent cover. Let's see what that one says. Up to $13. 1410 on that one in a 6.5. I'm just not feeling the Batman books at this point. VG. I'm looking for something in at least a 7. So here's one. Batman 272 and 7.0. It's still $1.68. And then you might think, hey, well, why not just bid $3? I'm just not going to. Batman 276, $7. I don't think any of these are marked as keys either. Nope. So no real key significance, just late 70s Batman if you're kind of filling out a run, but some of these copies are rough. 4.5. But see, this is my preferred interface, where I've got the thumbnails on the left and I don't have all of the other extraneous HipComic data to look at. I'm just here navigating within my own spreadsheet interface with all the data that I need. Okay, so Batman 323. That's in a VG Plus. I'm still not interested. 237 is a great book, but really, really low grade. I don't even have pricing data on that because I just figured I would pass. And then when this spreadsheet goes empty and I start to see a title I might be interested in, then I'll switch back to HipComic. But I'm just kind of going down. So everything's alphabetized, and I'm only in the titles to start with B, so I have a ways to go and not a lot of time left for the auction. Let me say this too and take a break. First of all, thank you for everybody that is here watching the live stream. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I'd love to answer them. My other approach with auctions is set it and forget it. Whatever I go in and whenever I put my max bid in for the item, that's what it is, and I leave it alone. I rarely go back and increase it unless I am emotionally invested for some reason. But for the most part, like the ASM book that I bid on, or the books, a couple of bids I have, they are what they are. If I'm outbid, I'm outbid, and I just leave it. And I check later in the evening to see if I won. I just don't care. I do care, but I'm taking the emotion out of like sitting down and watching the auction and getting wrapped up into it. That's the part I don't care about anymore, is that experience of the live auction. I've just found it to not work for me because I end up just not being smart with my money and overbidding and overpaying. Brave and the Bold, don't really collect that. There are a couple of 7.0s, but I don't have pricing information, so there are plenty of comics. I'm just going to keep going. We're finally on to the C's. Cap 229 and a 6.5. Cat number 1, $8, already up to, it's at least $12.50 now. Champions, not seeing a whole lot. Always looking at Conan back issues, 34 and 35. Are those still 99 cents? Let's look at those. Yeah, they're both 99 cents. 20-cent covers, I love those. Yeah, this one's rough. Really badly miswrapped. Lots of spine damage on that. They have it as a 6.0. How about this one? This one looks better. Conan 35. And a Fine Plus 6.5. That one I'll probably bid on. So Conan 35, it's telling me $4.54. So I'll plug that in. And I'm the high bidder. Move on to the next. Creatures on the Loose. Oh, so it says intact, so that means the data is not quite right. So if I go back to my listing detail, what was it? Creatures on the Loose. The grade is actually FN plus. Daredevil VG FN. And now Creatures on the Loose is negative 339. So you couldn't pay me to buy that one. Skip that. Daredevil 164 in a VF plus. Let me check that out. Interesting. Is this a VF plus? Well, it's got whatever that is, ink stains up and down. Oh, they didn't even disclose this. It's stained down here near the barcode and lots of creasing up and down. So no, not an 8. This is where their grading's all over the place and it's annoying. It's like on one hand, you want it to be accurate and the other hand, you don't. Ben Jazz says, that's where I get caught up on these auctions. What if I only win one book and it ends up... what if I only win one book and it ends up $5? Then I'm stuck with paying high shipping for one $5 book. Not ideal. Yeah. Well, I'm the same way. I hate paying for shipping on one book when the majority of the books I buy are in like the $5 to $25 range. If you're buying a $500 book and they want to ship it for $5, I get that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. Detective Comics 475. That'd be a great book, but Moisture Stain. Let's jump back to the spreadsheet. It's still saying $26, but usually if it's disclosed with Moisture Stain, detached staple, I just ignore it. There's got to be a better copy out there somewhere. Detective 477 in a 7.0. Interesting. The other thing you can do too is if you're not sure if the grading's accurate, just look at the number of bids. So for this one, there's 7 bids on it. So clearly it must be decent. Yeah, there's spine ticks. Decent book. I'm not a hardcore Detective Comics collector. That's not a goal of mine to have every issue of Detective. Don't have pricing on a lot of these tech books. Here's $4.95 in an 8.0. Let's look at that one. This one's not too bad. Let me zoom in. So the top cover looks a little rough. Corner, something in the top left there. Spine ticks. Corner. Yeah, right there. Right across Black Lightning's hair is a big major crease. So moving on, and I just move on. No emotion, just keep going. And that was page 1. So I've got an hour and 20 minutes to finish, and I will finish before then. Fantastic Four. Let's look at those real quick. Fantastic Four 175. $1.85 for that one. 177. Yeah, not worth bidding on. 211 might be. 1309. Oh, that's the one with Terax. Let's see. I've picked this up from Mile High in the past. So the photo's not great, but few color breaking ticks. It's a direct copy, which is nice. This, I can't tell if that's a dog ear or not. Tough. Let me look at the back. This one I'm on the fence. I mean, it's 409. I just can't tell if that's a dog ear down right there. I don't see it going across. That's the thing. It might just be part of the art. So the spreadsheet's telling me 1309. When I'm not sure in these cases, then that's when I'll bid the target, 935. So I lock that in. Somebody bid $5 on it, and then I just move on. Ghost Rider 21. Let's look at the Ghost Rider books. VGFN. This one's kind of cool. Number 25 and a VF minus. It's saying 1438 for that one. Let's see here. This copy looks pretty strong. A little bit of creasing here, but cool cover. Honestly, like any Ghost Rider cover where he's on the bike, it's just great. It's hard to tell. The issue might be faded. I'm not exactly sure if that's the natural color, like over here where it fades off to the right. Here's something else. There's a crease here. That can be pressed. A couple little creases towards the spine here. Those can be pressed out too. So this looks to be a nice copy. This is like the perfect book for me, where I think it's higher than a VF minus. It's only a $5 bid. And even in the current condition, it's telling me to bid $14.38. But if I think it's an 8.5, the max goes down. Oh, it's because now we start to get into graded condition territory. But if it's a 9.15, so around $14-15, I'm going to put it back to its original and say $14.38. This is the kind of book that I look for. And it took over an hour to find it, and I probably would not have, first of all, spent this much time, but also probably would have just missed it completely. So I would love to win that book because I think it's undergraded, and has pretty good value at $14 to $20 raw anyway. Ghost Rider 27, 681. That one looks pretty good too. I think I'll do the 681. Okay. And honestly, these Ghost Rider books, I would have just skipped over them if I were just scrolling through the auction. You get auction fatigue too. I don't know if anybody experiences this, like with eBay or some other online selling platform. Is just, and I'm starting to get it right now, where I almost get like a little bit of a headache. Just, you just run out of steam, and I'm on the letter G, trying to go A to Z on this thing. And then you're like, oh, do I really want to look at Ghost Rider books? Let me just skip those. Love this Heroes for Hope book, but it's in a fine plus, so I'm going to pass on that one. Here's some Hulk books. Oh, that's interesting. First appearance of Rocket Raccoon. And like, this book was not in the top 4 where they're like, hey, we want to get your attention for this auction. But here's some sneaky books. Invaders books have sneaky value. This Hulk 271. Let me just look at VF for this one. Now, I made the mistake of doing this where I'm looking at the condition before the value, but this looks really strong. A little, just the tiniest of overlap here in the bottom right corner, which now I realize you may not be able to see on the stream. It's cut off. My apologies on that. But yeah, I was noticing down here, I can't get it to show up. But anyway, the bottom right corner has a little bit of an issue, but not too bad. This looks to be nice. Really nice. Let's check out the back. Okay, I do see some creasing on the back right in here. Probably could be pressed. And then, again, that corner. Difficult to see on the live stream. It's cut off right at the corner, but there's just some tearing down there. I think it's a clean and press candidate, but now let's see. So it says 127.50 when there's 10 bids, and it looks like it's better than the listed grade. So it's like, what do you do? Do you bid? Do you not? Do you just go to cover price? So let's look here. Incredible Hulk 271. I don't want to skip the rest of the Hulks, but I'm just doesn't have pricing. 271. Let me just double check the year on this. I don't have data on that book, so I'm going to skip it. Looks to be a strong copy, though. I mean, we can check on cover price or something, but I want to move on to some of the other books that I do have data on. Hulk 234, already outbid over my max. So the Invaders books. Invaders 5 is a book that I've tried to get in the past. $5.30 for that one. I just like the cover. This was a recent value pick that I posted to Instagram. So I'm just going to go 530. The Union Jacket VF minus. I've seen that book come up before too. First Union Jack on Invaders 8. $19 for that one. Let's see. Looks nice. Few hairline ticks. Color break by Namor's head. You know, 8, 8.5, maybe a 9. Flip it over. I think just some creasing. There's some pretty nasty creasing here. Right here. There's 3 big creases. 8.5 is probably where I would put that book. And they're saying VF minus. So that's when I would come back here just to see, would that make a difference? Yeah, see 28 if that's a 8.5. So then I put it back to 7.5 and I say, okay, $19. I don't like to end my bids on a whole dollar, so I'll do $19.09. See what happens there. $11.50 and then move on. The rest of the Invaders books kind of getting outbid already. Invaders 14. Not interested in those. Just kind of going back and forth looking at the condition and the price, and the bid max. Not seeing anything else for the Invaders here. Keep going. Jungle Action. Lots of Jungle Action books. I don't see anything really popping. Jungle Action 21 is jumping out. 2618 is $75 and a 6.0. Marvel value stamp intact. Oof. Yeah, see, it's weird. This is not a 6. Spine looks just awful. It's probably more like a 5. So I'll just skip that one. Don't have a lot of information on these. My book, Man Thing #1. Who doesn't love a Man Thing? I'm personally skipping these just because I just sent 2 more off to Palm Beach for pressing Man Thing #1, including the one that got rejected by CGC. Mark Spector 60 and a 9. No thanks. Marvel Chillers. Nothing in a super high grade. Marvel Premiere 28. That's jumping out on the sheet. First appearance of Legion of Monsters. Oh, 122.50 already on that one. Yikes. Yeah, I'm out. My max is 68. Cool book, but it's almost twice as much as what my max is, so. Marvel Premiere 30. Marvel Premiere 35 in a 7.5, but I'm outbid. I say I'm outbid. I don't have a bid on the book. I just say that because the current bid is above my max. So I'm just like pretending to bid more Marvel premieres. Just going to keep going. Marvel Spotlight 12, $14. Let's look at that one. It's up to 15. I think it just went over, right? Yeah, my max is 14.44. We'll skip that one. Running out of steam here. Contest of Champions. I love those books. VF minus, VF plus. This is one I always bid on if I can. Love this one. Looks to be a nice copy. And number 3, which is this one. I wonder if I have it named something else. So let me look that up. It does have to be named precisely in order for me to pull back the values. So I'm just looking off camera at what I'm calling this. Marvel Superheroes. Maybe I just call it Contest of Champions. And that's the trouble, is I have to figure out what I called it. I can't just like look it up on Cover Price because I don't know if I called this Contest of Champions, Marvel Superheroes Contest of Champions. It's just Contest of Champions, it looks like. Yeah. Let's change that and see if I get the data, because I would like to bid on that book. Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions. Let's see if that helps. Nope. What did I call it then? Let's try one more and then I'll move on if this doesn't work. Oh, it was the hyphenated superhero. There we go. Okay, so number 3, 586 on that one. Love that book. Outbid. Oh well. You know, and then it's like, okay, so here's an example. Like, I love that book. I'm outbid. Well, is it a 9? What if it's a 9? 463. Well, maybe I could press it into a 9 too, and then I start to justify the higher bid. I'm just gonna go and move on with that one. Marvel 2-in-1, Master of Kung Fu 17. I did want to see what the value is for the book they're highlighting, the first Shang-Chi. I think that was in this one. I thought they had Master of Kung Fu in here. Didn't they? Yeah. Oh, they listed under S, Special Marvel Edition 15. The more formal name. Okay, Moon Knight. I like collecting these, but I prefer them in higher grade. So we're going to go into the final page, the stretch run here. And I saw this earlier, and this was something I wanted to look at. Phantom Stranger. There's a lot of Phantom Stranger books, and I wanted to see, as I do have even images for these, if any of them were worthwhile. So Phantom Stranger #1 in a VG minus. Wow. It's tough. It's $21, so it's tempting, but tape pull, interior, back cover. I just don't like dealing with those more significant defects like tape pulls, moisture stains, detached staples. Anything of that sort I just stay away from. 454 on Phantom Stranger 29. Outbid. Number 30 in a Fine Plus. A lot of these are low. Phantom Stranger 31, 378, 32, 1968. That's a VF for 32. Yeah, and there's been some action on it. That one looks pretty nice. Yep, I'll bid on that one. 20-cent cover. I'm a sucker for those. 1968. And outbid. Phantom Stranger 33. $3. Don't have anything on 34. 35. It's not as valuable as I thought. Or not as interesting, I guess, in terms of activity. Phantom Stranger 36 for 757. The VF minus copy. I don't know if that's VF minus. Feels like more like a 6 or like a Fine Plus. I'll skip it. Anything else? Phantom Stranger. Phantom Stranger 40 in a VF. I don't have information on that. 41. Okay, well, not as interesting as I thought. Luke Cage Power Man. Don't have info. So this is the tough part. I don't have info on every book just because It would take me forever to get to look up data and actually put it in these sheets for every single comic book. Red Wolf. Pass. ROM #1 and a VF. 865 is the max on that one. $17 is, I think, the current bid. Yep. Savage She-Hulk #1 in a fine condition. $51. I think people are just being nostalgic on that one. This is a good example of what I was showing earlier. So it has a $51 current bid. You can just go, if you really want it in a 6, you can just go get it from my comic shop right now. Where is it? There it is. $54. Yeah. There you go. Don't even have to deal with all of the tax and the auction nonsense. You can just buy it outright. So that's why I put the MCS, is because if I was in the ballpark, if the current bid was in the ballpark of my max and it was around $50, I would consider just getting it right from my comic shop. Sensational She-Hulk #1. I've got it as a $6 max. It's already well beyond that, $20.50. Oh man, this is a book that I've been after. Shauna the She-Devil #1. It's saying that it's a fine minus with overspray. Oh, ooh, yeah, right there at the top. All of that. Again, just not something, if I had in a slab, that I would want to see all of that extra ink. Son of Satan 7 #1. Let me just look at that real quick. $10 outbid at 11. So there's the Special Marvel Edition 15, already at 168.50. Let's take a look at it. It is a key. I'm just curious to see. Just eyeballing the front, looks like an 8. And the back, ooh, looks like a subscription crease or something. It's completely creased up and down the middle. So probably closer to a 7. Fine minus. Okay, so they've got it as a 5.5. Which is fair. $135 slab for a 5.5, and somebody is paying for a 5.5 at 168. Now, I said a 7. Let's go 6.5 just to kind of be fair. It's not worth it. So somebody's just chasing the fact that it's a key. I don't think it's really that much higher than a 6 or a 6.5. I think what somebody's doing is they're like, oh, that can be pressed. The back, that whole line that you see can be pressed out. And they're not wrong. There's a lot of just general creasing, but there's enough spine ticks on the front that I feel like even if you could press it out, maybe it ends up being a 7, maybe a 7.5. What does a 7.5 say? 7.5 max is 120. It's still, the book is dropped. It's not worth it. Spectacular Spider-Man 189. We're getting close to the end here. It's a hologram cover. Superman. Supernatural Thrillers. Let me check these real quick. Supernatural Thrillers 5, 32, 77. Already outbid at 37. Unless I'm missing something on that one. Is that a 5.5? It's kind of discolored on the back. It's not tanned or yellowed, but it's just got something up and down the spine, some creasing. I don't think that's a 5.5. It could be more like a 6.5. Does that change it? So mine is 32.77. 52.13. It does jump. Ooh, that one's tempting. It needs some work, but it's not bad. What if it's a 7? 70. Keeps going up. So there's a lot of graded value in this book too. So this is something I. How about a 6? Let's just say it's slightly undergraded. 36.29. Oh, it's tempting. What did I say? I think it was a 6.5. 52.13. So this is where I'll make the exception, and somewhere between 37 and 52. So I would just do something in the middle, 44. And we'll see what happens. Where did I leave off? Oh, I think I think the auction is close to starting. Am I missing something? Looks like that book disappeared. Supernatural Thrillers 5. Weird. It's gone. That's so bizarre. Let me reload. Oh, there it is. That was weird. It just disappeared. Okay. Tales of Ghost Castle. Fine. Probably skip those. Tales to Astonish. Tales to Astonish. VG. Let's skip those. Too low grade. Okay, this is one I was looking at too. Transformers #1. I have one personal copy of this, and it's probably a 6.0 just because I carried this book everywhere, everywhere I went, and I wanted to see if this was a nice looking copy. And it is really nice. See, now you look at this, I'm like, what am I missing? Because the spine on the left looks great. Maybe just a few hairline ticks. So I usually just ballpark that as a 9.0, but it could be higher. Up at the top, ooh, that looks a little rough. But see, I can't tell that if that's just general overlap and some waviness that could be pressed, or if that's actually, I don't think it's torn. It's almost just like a reflection of the light from the photo in the background, where that could be flattened out potentially. That clearly needs to be pressed. So this is probably an 8 that maxes out as a 9. And they have it as an 8.5. If it's a 9, yeah, it's as much as I want another copy. It's too expensive. $131. You could just get it slabbed. What was a 9? $144 in a 9.0. CGC 9.0, and then you're bidding on this sight unseen for, well, not sight unseen, but like with some questionable photography. I'll just pass. And then Transformers 3 and 4. I think I've got the year wrong on that one. Let me update that real quick. Transformers. Let's change it to 1984. There we go. $8.95. They're just popular. They're just popular. That's all it is. So I got to pass. Uncanny X-Men 166 is up next for me. I have a lot of copies of that book, so I'm going to personally pass on that. Vault of Evil number 3, 1362. Let me check that out. I don't know what that is down the left and right, but that does not look good, so I'm just going to skip it. War Machine, I don't like that in a VF. I mean, it's saying it's a 9, but yeah, I'm not interested. Wonder Woman number 1, I don't have pricing on that. In a VF. World's Finest. Okay, a few, of course, X-Men 101 right at the very end, a huge book. But we've got a few interesting X-Men books, so we're going to end on this because I do want to look up the values. So we've got X-Men 102 in a fine, very fine, at $46.98. 31.34. So already outbid, but is it a 7? Yeah, it's a rough copy. It's probably more like a 6. X-Men 129, big book. First Kitty Pryde. Okay, let's zoom in on this. Yeah, this one looks nice. Oh, nope. This going right across here. Don't know what that is. Pass. At least I see it, and I don't get tricked into thinking that it's something that it's not. X-Men 130, the first Dazzler. Everybody loves Dazzler these days. Dog ear at the top, color breaking ticks, so already a 9. How about the back? Back looks okay. 8.5 to 9 is where I'd put this one, and I think that's what they have it. They've got it as a 9. And I've got it. Oh no, they have it as a 7. Fine, very fine. Oh, they have it as a 7. So 7 is 63. I say it was a 9. Even if it's a 9.0, it's over my max. People are just crazy for Dazzler. They're just paying way more for it. X-Men 131. I think that's it's the first White Queen, her first cover. She first appears in 129, and then she's on the cover of 131. It's too... Yeah. It's why I buy out and collect a lot of the X-Men. They're always desirable. Now, for... This is interesting. My max bid is close. Assuming it's still at 318. It is. And I skipped 139. 139 and an 8, $16. $31 is the max. Let me go back. Let's look at... Well, let me do that X-Men 101 last. Oh, it just has data in here from the last one. So that's the last book. X-Men 101 will be the last book that we look at. And let's see. VF minus. So the first thing I'll say is I'm looking for an upgrade of the book that I have. The book that I have is... Oh, I don't even have it up. I don't remember the grade. It's around a 5, but it's faded. The colors on these, the color on this book, this issue, this copy looks great. The blues in the back are striking. Phoenix is like dead center. Like the green in her costume, her red orange hair really pops. It's great. Clearly you could see up here there's something going on with the corner up here. Now that could be pressed, as could that crease there too. But looking at it as is, a blunted corner like that, I usually drop the book to a 9, just when the pages start to ripple, because that's going through like every page in the book. So I usually ballpark it roughly as a 9.0. So already I'm looking at it as a 9, but the spine looks really, really nice. That could be some bindery tearing down here in the left corner. Sorry, you can't see that on the video. The right edge looks good. Maybe a little bit of a tear or something there. Still in the ballpark of a 9. And did you see? You can't see this on the. Here, I'm gonna cheat here. One second. I need to show you this. There. What is that? Oh, man. Here I was this close to saying I didn't want to, I'm not looking for a big book right now, didn't want to pay for a big book, and then I was considering this one until I saw whatever that is. Because this is just creasing. This can all be buffed. I mean, it looks like it could be pressed into a 9.4. And then there's that. So it'll be a pass. I think just for fun, if let's pretend that's not there. And I say like, okay, what is a 9? 376 would have been the max bid, which is something I would have considered maybe for that book. But my bids are in. And I didn't check, but I'm probably already getting some outbid notifications. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like I said, I prefer more like the set it and forget it kind of thing. But that's it. This was a lengthy live stream. I appreciate everyone that hung out, those that stayed to the end. I hope that you found it interesting in terms of looking at the process. But that's my prep. So now I can kind of move on and go do something else. I don't go and sit in front of my computer or phone and watch these auctions end because my bid max is not going to change. My mind's not going to change. The conditions aren't going to change. And I like to have all of this data and the prep work done beforehand so that I'm not guessing at the time of auction and maybe seeing a cover come across where I've got 30 seconds to decide. I'm like, oh, I love that cover. I love that book. And then I overpay for it. I found this to be more of a not necessarily enjoyable process, but it's definitely less stress where you're just kind of setting the bids and you move on and you can go do other things like I'm about to do. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you all for watching and hanging out. Really appreciate it. I'll have another CGC pre-screen unboxing coming up very soon, and maybe even some unboxing of some past Infinity auctions. I think I'm overdue for that as well. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.